Welcome to Garden Wise Adventures. My name is Malie and I live in Utah Zone 6/7. And today it is the very last day in August and I have been very patiently waiting for harvest of tomatoes to actual no avail. We've had very few tomatoes harvested this year, and as I've been looking at them, there's a lot of issues with tomatoes this year, and I am not the only one here in Utah. And I'd love to hear if any other places have had these problems with tomatoes, but let's look at them and show you what the problems are. Now this first problem is a common problem for most people. I have not had it on my tomatoes in all the years that I've grown them until now. Now I will show you a picture of what I found on these, and it was that nasty little hornworm that comes through and eats your tomatoes. Now that has not been the main problem that I've had. Obviously it's going to reduce the leaf mass, possibly reduce the ability for the tomato to photosynthesize and give energy to produce tomatoes. But this is not the main problem, it's just one of them. Let's go show you some more issues. Now these are the tomatoes on my south side. They're looking pretty good so far, full of green tomatoes, but very few ripe tomatoes. Now normally, if you could see these poles that are sticking up, I like to prune to a single stem and allow the tomatoes just to go up that single stem and then keep them in check. But we've had so few tomatoes that I decided to just kind of let them go at the tops now and see if we can get any production whatsoever. Now we are starting to see some blossoms, but these are the first blossoms I've seen since probably, I'd say June. Now the issue that we've had in my area is the heat. We went from a very cool spring. It was so cool and so cold that I couldn't plant these tomatoes until June. It was like the first week in June by the time it was warm enough to plant them. And then we went straight to the 100-degree temperatures. They grew beautifully, but they did not form any tomatoes. Well, okay, when I say any tomatoes, they formed a few. I have had maybe, I'd say, 24 pounds of tomatoes, when normally I have around 200 pounds of tomatoes harvested by this time. Now actually we do have one. Let's harvest this guy. Yay, we have one. This is an Amish paste. We've got a few more coming on, but I think that's the only one we have ripe in here in September, except for maybe a few that were labeled Sun Gold. Let's pull a couple of those off and see what they look like. So we do have a couple that were labeled Sun Gold. I'm not sure if they're really Sun Gold because they don't look like it. But temperatures have been a big issue in getting ripe tomatoes. Any temperatures above 90 degrees usually makes the tomato abort their flowers before forming tomatoes. Now we've got another issue up here. Let's look at this one. Let's pull this down. I'm being very careful for spiders. But look at that. We've got some distorted tomato vines. One possibility for this could be somebody using 2,4-D or some other herbicide close by that drifted. Now, there's not a lot of damage here, so it may not be 2,4-D. I'm only seeing one area that's contorted like this. But when you see contorted foliage, it could be herbicide damage. Now we're also getting a lot of leaf curl. Leaf curl can be many different issues. It could be drought, it could be heat, and it could also be tomato leaf curl, which you get actually purple. But if it was the tomato leaf curl fungus, I would have purple veins right through here, and I don't. So this isn't the leaf curl virus. This is more likely temperature because it is still in the 90s. Now our climate doesn't usually lend itself to blight, but it looks like we are getting a few leaves with blight on them. We're not very humid at all. We're very dry, but it looks like we are starting to see a little bit of blight. A little more leaf curl down here, and one more Jetstar tomato. And here's a good, I hadn't seen this recently. I haven't been back here for a while, but it looks like we might get a few tomatoes. Maybe it did cool off a little bit last week. down into the 80s, and it looks like maybe some of these tomato blossoms are able to form tomatoes. So we're definitely not going to get what we normally get out of tomatoes, but we might get a few more. Let's go look at another area. Now once again, over here, this is a different area of my property, which normally sees a huge amount of tomato growth. This is my Sun Sugar, and it is just been very, very bare. Very little production. We have a few right here that we can harvest. So we just have a handful there. And then we've got what looks like a misshapen tomato over here. But this is actually not really misshapen. It is, well, a little bit. There's some damage. I'm not sure what that damage is from. But this is a mushroom basket. This is what a mushroom basket tomato normally looks like. So we are getting one mushroom basket with a little bit of splitting right here. Now splitting usually happens here in Utah because of large rain events, or if you don't water and then water a lot. So we have had some large rain events, so I'm thinking that's what caused that splitting. This is a carbon tomato. We're also getting some of that splitting look. Let's try and harvest this one. Yep, so that was also from the rain. And that is it. Got another jet star here that is trying to form some more tomatoes. But the mushroom basket has 1, 2, 3. Here's another one on the carbon. There's a little tiny one on my Cherokee Purple. And then a cluster of new ones on the Cherokee Purple. But this is it. I am really not seeing a lot of growth on my tomatoes. And look who else we found. Another hornworm that's been eating my tomatoes. So here's my massive tomato harvest for the year, which is really depressing to me. Normally by this time I have had 3 batches of salsa, several batches of sauce, and several batches of just regular canned tomatoes. Then I've always had enough left over to can tomato soup. But this year I've made 2 batches of salsa, and that's all I've had enough tomatoes for. Like I said, it's the beginning of September, and by the end of September our tomatoes here in Utah are done because it just gets too cold for them. So it's really, really disappointing. Now there are a few more tomatoes on the vines. I'm hoping there's enough for maybe a batch of sauce, which I'm seriously doubting. But if there is, I really would be happy. Now I would love to hear if you've had any problems in your states. You know, so far it looks like weather has been a major player in our problems. Insects and disease that I haven't seen before is popping up. What are the problems that you've had with your tomatoes? Have you had a good tomato harvest? And if so, what have you done with them? So I'm hoping that this video has been helpful for you. If it has been helpful, I hope you like, subscribe, share it with your friends, and go have a wonderful garden adventure.